Thank you all for joining us in this panel discussion. We're going to be talking about limiting beliefs today, and I want to start by describing to everybody what limiting belief is. A limiting belief is a state of mind or a belief about ourselves that holds us back in some way. This can show up in the form of like, I'm not smart enough, I'm too young or too old for something, women aren't supposed to do X. So I'm really excited to start our discussion where we will hear from our guest panelists who come from 3 different coaching specialties and perspectives. But first, I want to talk about why limiting beliefs hold us back. There are 2 parts of our brain. All right. Well, let me rephrase. There's many parts of our brain, but there are 2 parts that specifically help us to regulate our emotional and cognitive processes. There's the prefrontal cortex. Actually, I have a background here, brain in the background here. There's a prefrontal cortex, and that part of our brain is responsible for helping us with decision making, emotional regulation, and planning. And then we have the amygdala, which is a little piece that helps us with threat and fear response. This is where the fight, flight, or freeze comes in. And as I was kind of researching this about limiting beliefs and what does it do to our brains, it was really interesting to just kind of discover how limiting beliefs have come into my life and how it has come to stay in my life. So I'll give you an example. Have you ever considered doing something specific, like raise your hand and ask a question, and in that split second, in that split second moment, you end up chickening out because some thoughts trigger fear and doubt, and in a split second, your brain is flooded with thoughts like, "Is this a dumb question? Should I already know this? How come nobody else is asking these questions? Um, I, is this going to make me look like an idiot if I'm going to ask these questions?" So then, why is that important? Well, because these limiting beliefs that are triggering fear response, it causes our amygdalas, this guy right here, to hijack us, and where it becomes limiting. It becomes something that gets us stuck, is when these limiting beliefs in that moment start to stay and stick around, and it becomes a longer term issue where that it starts influencing our decision making, and that's the prefrontal cortex. And now we end up changing how we behave based on what we are maintaining as a belief about ourselves or about our situation. So today, um, myself, our coaches, Lori, Kimberly, and Rachel, are looking to unlock your limiting beliefs so that you can effectively shift from I can't to I can. So let me start by introducing our coaches. Starting with our health and wellness coach, Rachel specializes in helping women in their 40s and 50s reclaim their health and confidence. As a board certified health coach who has been through a health journey herself, she brings a unique blend of personal experience and professional expertise to her work. She understands the challenges women face, whether it's emotional eating, struggling with self sabotage, or finding motivation, because she has lived through it. Most recently, Rachel has been focusing on women, helping women navigate perimenopause and menopause. So, Rachel, welcome. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, our next panelist is Lori, our career and leadership coach. Lori is passionate about empowering next-gen professionals to develop leadership readiness and navigate generational workforce transitions for confident, successful career growth. She leverages 30 plus years of leadership experience to help her clients confidently step into leadership roles during the baby boomer exodus and secure their career growth. Through her tailored coaching and strategic guidance, she is dedicated to shaping the leaders of tomorrow. Lori and I both come from the same training organization called IPEC, where she has acquired her coach certification. Welcome, Lori. Thank you too for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. And our third panelist today is Kimberly. Kimberly brings decades of experience in relationship coaching. She is also a licensed clinical social worker in Texas and Illinois in private practice. Kimberly sees couples all over the US and helps them resolve their issues so they can make their marriage work. Her success rate is over 85%. She has been named as a top 3 marriage counselor for 7 years in a row in El Paso, Texas. She is widowed after a 50-year marriage, and her motto is give the next generation an advantage, be happily married or happily divorced. Welcome to our panel discussion, Kimberly. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Charlotte.
So at this point, we're going to turn off screen share and so we can focus our conversation on our panel discussion. And for those of you who are attending, if you have any questions for the coaches, please feel free to put your question in the chat or hold them until the Q&A portion of this discussion, where you'll have the opportunity to ask your questions live. So the way we're going to do this is we're just going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask our coaches some questions, and we're just going to organically let the conversation happen. So Lori, since you're at the top of my screen, what are some of the most common limiting beliefs that your clients face as a career and leadership coach?
Yeah, it's career in leadership. Some of those common beliefs that I hear often is I'm not ready, or I'm ready, but I'm not ready. And, that belief alone keeps people sitting on the sidelines of opportunity, waiting for that imaginary moment where everything aligns and the stars are all aligned. And so, they're perfectly qualified for it. They have that voice inside. Another one that I often hear is I'm not leadership material. And that's interesting because I ask them, what makes you think that you're not leadership material? And they are fully qualified. And again, it's that voice, it's a narrow definition. We have to focus. I try to focus that on stepping into that visibility, right? And being in the right place at the right time. And it's not that they lack the talent. The talent's 100% there. It's just that their mindset blocks their action. And it's a little bit surrounded around not so much the fear of six. It's not so much the fear of failing as much as it is the fear of success for some of them.
Interesting. How do you uncover that because it's very natural for somebody to fear failure. How do you figure out that it's a fear of success?
Most of my conversations anymore are around the fear of success. And once you start to kind of peel back the onion, they get to a certain point and they're like, yes, I can get to this point, but what if they find out that I don't know all the answers, or that I'm not 100% comfortable, or what if I can't do this, or what if I come up against a new challenge? And they're afraid that what people know of them right now that got them to this point in their career is uncovered that they don't know everything. And that piece of that is peeling that back and saying, okay, so then they start to self-sabotage a little bit, and think, okay, imposter syndrome. We hear that term a lot anymore, that they're going to be uncovered and they feel this imposter syndrome. And so they start to do that self-sabotage that you mentioned in your opening. And so they pull back instead of moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely in my career, I work in corporate as my day job and looking at data, but in that space, I definitely have felt that imposter syndrome where I was at some point offered the next level and I'm like, I'm not account executive material, or that's not the kind of job I like, or what if I can't sell the thing? I'd rather do the thing than sell the thing.
Mhm.
And and but in practice, I feel myself selling the things. So that's really so interesting. Um, from well, I guess like the other thing I wanted to share that came to mind was the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. I remember a passage in there where she talks about how men tend to apply for open jobs when they meet only 60% of the qualifications, where women tend to apply only when they feel that they've met the qualifications 100%. And so it's like that there's some gender things going on there. There's some age things going on there. I'm too old to try something new. I'm too young to be considered for some sort of leadership.
Mhm.
That's so interesting. Um, just kind of shifting gears a little bit from a health and wellness perspective, Rachel, what kind of limiting beliefs have you encountered with your clients?
Yeah, it's interesting. Lori brought up almost like the fear of success, because I've seen that on the health and wellness side too, where especially around coaching women, oftentimes a lot of the discussion is around weight loss or wanting to make some sort of improvement to their bodies one way or another. And, when it comes to weight loss, especially, there is that fear of success, especially if someone's been sort of overweight their whole life and sort of not known a healthier lifestyle. It's almost like, what would life look like if I got healthier? And almost a self-sabotaging kind of cycle that they get themselves into because they're comfortable. They know, it goes back to what you were saying about the amygdala. The brain wants to stay and keep you comfortable. So it wants to keep you in that status quo of what you kind of know. So that's definitely one area. Another area, just with working with perimenopausal women, um, is just sort of accepting getting older and the changes that come about. We're all women, so we're all going through it or going to go through it. And just sort of accepting those changes and that there is no control over it, and sort of believing that you have no control, and just sort of sitting back and going, okay, well, I guess this is what it's like to get older. And rather than trying to continue to help embrace the aging process and help yourself along the way.
So what I'm hearing from that is this is going to happen whether you like it or not. You can
Right.
either resist it, and it doesn't really change anything, or you can shift your mindset and go with the flow and make it as best of an experience as you can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's definitely things where you're not necessarily going to be able to um, changes with hormones and that sort of thing. Like, there are things that are going to be out of your control for sure. But there is the sort of the attitude of making it the best you can. And
Yeah,
rather than just sort of giving up and sort of perpetuating that, oh, well, kind of this is the way it's going to be, you want to try and embrace it as much as you can to make the experience as smooth as possible.
yeah. I have a t-shirt that says we can't always control our situations, but we can control our attitude.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's a big piece of, limiting beliefs really, is
Yeah.
just how you think about them and sort of how you reframe them when they come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Kimberly, from a relationship standpoint, what kind of limiting beliefs have you encountered with your clients?
Well, I'd like to answer a little bit of a different question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. I believe every belief is a limiting belief.
Mm,
So you can have a belief that I can ace this test, and it's still a limiting belief because the opposite is I won't ace the test. So every belief we have actually limits us from doing something else. What I think we want is a belief that makes relationships work, because I am in the relationship field. So what belief makes the relationship work? Well, you hear a lot about narcissists. And so their belief about they could do nothing wrong actually creates a problem in the relationship because they're dealing with another person who has a different belief of like, you can make mistakes. And so you have this conflict that goes on. So in a relationship, opposing beliefs is what causes the problem, and it limits the relationship, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
The other thing I discovered, which I found fascinating, is that every man who's ever cheated that I've worked with, when I get down to their quote beliefs, they came up with the same one. They might have a lot of different ones, but there was one that was always the same with every single man who cheated. And with women, it was the same thing, but it was a different belief. So every man who cheated has a belief that they were unlovable.
Interesting.
So they were looking for people to love them. And every woman had the belief that they weren't enough. So they were looking for validation from somebody that they were enough. So based on what you were talking about with the women don't apply for a job unless they're perfectly fit, if that's the belief, I'm not enough, they're not going to apply for a job. Or if the man doesn't have that belief, he'll apply for the job because he'll go, I'll just learn. So our behavior, when we watch a person's behavior, it definitely shows us what is their belief. What are they believing that they act this way? Because every action that the person takes is to resolve a problem that they think they have. So if they think they're unlovable, they'll solve the problem by finding other women to love them. If they think they're not enough, they'll solve that problem by finding validation from somebody else.
Oh, that's interesting. One thing that I've been hearing a lot lately is no decision is a decision. So that goes to what you're saying. Every belief is a limiting belief when you look at the other side of the coin.
And sometimes we don't even make the decision ourselves. The decision is made for us.
Yeah.
And what if all of those learning that we had growing up in our education is what's giving us those limiting beliefs? And what happens to an individual whose parents and the world around them say you can do anything?
Yeah.
And that would be an interesting study.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So let me throw it out to the panelists. How do we catch ourselves in these limiting beliefs so we can make a change, so we can at least have some awareness and start creating the attitude that we want to go forward with?
I think one thing is just, I mean, some of it comes down to a bit of self-talk and learning to recognize your thought patterns. But it's in those moments where, you know, you think you're going to do something and then there's some doubt creeps in, and recognizing that voice inside of you that's saying, no, you can't do that, or maybe not. And learning to recognize that, but also then reframe it and even validate, like, okay, what is behind that thought? Like, is there real evidence saying, no, I can't pursue that job, or no, I couldn't lose the weight, or whatever it is? Like, just really thinking about what's behind that thought and then reframing it to something that's going to help move you forward.
Yeah. Byron Katie has, ask for questions, write it down. No, I forgot what it was. Anyway, she says, is it true? Is it absolutely true? So you're asking yourself, this thing that I'm thinking, that I can't do it, I can't lose the weight, or nobody's going to hire me. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? And I like that idea of challenging it. Challenge that belief.
Reality testing.
And I also say, who does it belong to? This belief that I'm having, or this feeling that I'm having, who does it belong to? Does it belong to the voice of my mother? Does it belong to the voice of my teacher? Does it belong to something I read in a book or listened at a workshop? So
Yeah.
those challenge it, challenge that belief, because here's the thing, we made it up.
Yeah. In
Not
infancy,
real.
these thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah. And to reiterate, Kimberly's, we call it the truth, truth and true, right? The big T and the little t. But I think what you need to do too is know that beliefs are not facts, and we've stated that, and they're stories, and stories can be edited at any time.
Yep.
So you don't have to wait until you're 100% confident to move. You can change those thoughts at any time. It's just recognizing it. And a lot of times I will ask clients, who just popped when you just said that to me, who just popped up in your mind?
Ooh.
Who did you just see when you just said that to me? Because I'm telling you, 100% of the time, a face pops up, a moment pops up, a situation that it may stem all the way back to, and I think Kimberly said that. And I think it's the same thing across any coaching, any limited belief, is it can go back from when you were a child. And so it's usually a face that immediately, a voice that immediately, and that's when you have to bring that to the surface and say, call it out, call that person out. And when you hear or see that person, you need to squash it, find a way to move past it. But usually, oftentimes, I would say 100% of the time when someone says that they say I can't, or I'm not ready, or something, there is a voice and a person in a situation tied to it.
That's so interesting. I do recall some experiences when I was working with my personal coach. Her name is Linda, and Linda would, when I'd say something, I didn't even catch myself saying something that she caught was a limiting belief. And she would ask me questions like that, where she would say, "Where did that belief come from?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what do you mean?" And then she'll dig a little bit deeper, and I go, "Oh my gosh." Didn't even realize that I was carrying that expectation from somewhere else, from someone else, from a quote that I read somewhere, and I thought I had to live up to it because, well, to be a good coach, you got to be blah, 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 or to be a good data analyst, you got to be blah, blah, blah. Wow.
You talked about the change. I think the hardest thing is for people not to be right. And so they have a belief, whatever it is. It might be limiting them, it might not. If it's not limiting them, they're not interested in changing it. They'll hold on to that belief. It's only when they think it's limiting them, like it's keeping them from something, then they're willing to kind of like, okay, I might not be right. But this need to be right for some of my clients is so strong that there is no reframing, there is no shifting the belief. But there is something called psyche that will change a belief in 3 to 5 minutes, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah.
anyway,
What psyche?
psyche, PSYCH-K, psyche. So actually, Bruce Lipton really endorses it a lot in changing your cellular memories. Yeah.
So Lori already kind of touched on it, but in terms of like, how do we shift our mindset around a limiting belief? Some ideas that come up for me as I'm taking notes over here is maybe writing a limiting belief journal or a log that says, oh, like a how many times has this come up? And in fact, that's something that my daughter, my 11-year-old, had offered yesterday. What if you were to write down every time you had something that you go, huh, is that? And then challenge it, reality testing it. It's one thing to do the work all on our own, and then it's another thing to have a personal one-on-one coach. But I feel like a community like this where we can feel safe to share and to I don't know, even just saying it out loud is so valuable and so helpful. What are your thoughts on some other ways that we can help shift our mindset around limiting beliefs?
This sounds strange to ask somebody, but I would ask them, why do you want to believe that?
Mm.
I want to see how, if they're fighting for that belief. why do you want to believe that? And most of the time they'll say, well, I don't. And they are looking for, well, then how do I get out of it? How do I shift it?
Yeah, similar to what Kimberly was talking about. I was I had a client that just couldn't really get to move forward. And I asked I asked her straight out and said, "Do you want, what is it that you want? Do you want to move forward? Or is this serving you, this belief?
Yeah.
Is it serving you in a way that allows you to it's almost a fear of letting that belief go." And because it was serving her, because she thought, "Oh my goodness, if I let this go, then this is my only thing that ties me back to some people." And I'm being very vague, but because there was some trauma, okay, we'll put that out there, that there was some trauma around it, and she thought that that trauma was her identity. And so by that, she thought that was the only way that people would speak to her and have a connection with people, is because it was tied to that trauma. So as long as she had this this belief system, it was still tying her to people. And she thought if she let that go, that people she wouldn't have a connection with people any longer. They were supporting that for her, if that makes sense.
You
And
know,
so,
that's the great example, Lori. That's a perfect example of what the person is doing and the belief around it
yes,
serves them.
yes,
It fixes a problem for them.
yes,
And so if we understood what's the problem that they're trying to fix or make go away with their behavior, then we can give them alternatives.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a great example, Lori.
Yeah,
I've
that's
had a
fantastic.
I've had a similar example with a client, and kind of similar to what Lori was saying, where she was getting very burnt out with work, and but her whole identity was around being a hard worker and just giving her all to her job, but at the sacrifice of her mental health, her physical health, everything else that was kind of falling by the wayside. So when it came time to sort of peel that back a bit and say, okay, you're saying you want to get healthy, and yet you're saying you have no time because of your job and, everything you're giving to the job. And, once we slowly started to dig a little deeper, it became a bit of her all or nothing thinking when it came to her health and wellness. Like, she had to exercise, eat well, do this, do that. And with having the job and putting all of her effort into the job, she felt like she had no time left to do anything else. But when we started looking at, how is she spending her day, and are there times, her thing with social media, sometimes she'd, take a half hour and just sort of scroll on social media and mindlessly to escape the work and stuff like that. So when we started digging into that, we did find that there were times in her day where she could fit in some healthy habits, and it didn't need to be that all or nothing of, okay, got to start exercising 5 days a week, got to eat well every day. Like, it was just taking those first steps. And for her, we realized that movement was probably the best first step because it helped her, just move past the burnout, help better manage her sleep, her stress, that kind of thing. So, sort of a similar type of thing to what Lori was saying.
Rachel, that's a great example of what Charlotte was bringing up about getting a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Because our identity, we can only see what's out there that matches what we believe. And so your client kept saying, I don't have any time, because it matched her belief.
Right.
But as a coach, you were able to slow it down enough and really dissect it in a way that made her realize, wait a second, if I move this around, if I did this, and all I have to do is this, and it doesn't have to be a big production, all I have to do is just dance or move my body. That's all I have to do. I can do that. And
Mhm.
that's what coaches do for clients, because the client can't see the forest for the trees because they're
Exactly.
stuck in
We use that
belief.
expression all the time.
Right. And so, and people get confused about coaching, like, oh, you're going to tell us what to do. And it's, no, that's not what coaching is. Actually, coaching kind of slows things down enough
Mhm.
for the client to begin to go, oh, they have a new awareness and a new belief and a new possibility. And that's why I like coaching.
So on that note, Kimberly, do you have any breakthrough moments that you can share with us, anonymized, of course, from a relationship standpoint of how something seems grand and
Oh, sure. So
relationship?
a couple came in and she said, I want to divorce him because he doesn't care about me. And I asked him, I says, is it true? He goes, oh no, I really care about her. So what I do is I look for evidence. So I says, well, what did he do that made it mean he doesn't care about you? And she told an example. They were married for 5 months and he made a decision about money that didn't include her. And so she made it mean you don't care about me.
Mm.
And he goes, I get it. I can understand why she would think that. But that belief, he doesn't care about me. So for the next 4.5 years, he said, I did everything to include her. I did all of these things. And he went on and on and on and on about everything he did to take care of her. And I thought to myself, shoot, I'd marry you. You're a pretty good guy, you know. Yeah. And she looked at him and she says, I don't remember any of that.
Oh,
And
wow.
he looks at me like, what are you talking about? How could this be? And I says, that's because everything you did didn't match what she believed. And this is how she created the reality. Everything he did not match what she believed. So I asked her, when was the first time you believed this? And it turned out that her parents took a vacation without her. She was a young child. They took a vacation without her, and she made it mean exactly this. People who say they love you and don't include you don't care about you. So what he did exactly matched that child belief.
Wow.
People who say they love you and do something without you don't care about you. And once she realized that, she was, oh my God. And now she was open to the possibility that his actions really showed you do care about me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was blew my mind, blew his mind.
That's profound. Oh my gosh. Just to kind of connect those dots and to realize what that interpretation that was living in my brain or in, that person's brain manifested itself into something reality in
And
her.
she would have divorced him.
Oh my gosh.
She would have divorced him on something that wasn't real.
Interesting. Lori, do you have any kind of breakthrough moments or
Yeah.
teaching that you can share with?
Yeah, I recently just had one, a young client, he was passed over for a leadership role and that he desperately wanted. And so he said, I'm just not seeing strategic enough. And so we explored and started uncovering a pattern, and he always would stay behind the scenes. So he was avoiding that high stake visibility. And so those opportunities were just not there for him. And then once he realized that this was rooted in fear of being judged in the room, kind of like you said, raising your hand, is this a stupid question? Um, he committed to one brave action a week, and he decided one was speaking up in meetings. He pitched an idea, and then within that 90 days, he was tapped for a cross-functional leadership project. And then his mindset totally shifted from I'm not enough to I have the value to offer now. So everything changed just within that 90 days, just by making the small step once a week to say, okay, I'm going to bring some visibility. It's uncomfortable, but I can do this once a week, similar to what Rachel was talking about. It's the small steps. So that's just totally changed just in that short amount of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really goes to what Rachel was saying was the all or nothing it's so captivating sometimes when you think, okay, that's my goal, but we don't think about the journey to get to that goal. We think about, oh, that's what I need to get.
Yeah.
hold on, maybe the goal is here, and you start going towards it, but at some point you'll learn during the path, maybe your goal will shift. Instead
Yeah.
of this, I want that. So stop looking at the thing that you're dreaming about and start looking at the journey, the steps towards it. Take one small step, and that
Yeah.
small step will take you to the next, and so on.
And it's being intentional, right? I think that's the big thing. You just have to be intentional and give yourself a little bit of grace, but be
Yeah.
intentional with it.
Yeah.
You brought up something interesting there too, Charlotte, about focusing on the journey, because when in a lot of the mindset training that I've had, it really is about not so much about the outcome goal of I'll go back to say weight loss, like I want to lose 50 pounds. It's about what are the small changes along the way, the journey. That's where the mindset work happens, when you start making those small changes along the way to that final goal, whatever it is. And by the time you get there, you're a different person from when you started. So that journey along the way was the transformation. You just didn't notice it because you're doing a bit at a time, and just sort of shifting in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. It stabilizes it, Rachel. It's a stable foundation when you can do it that way.
Mhm.
Sustainable.
Yeah. So we talked about self work. That's your day to day, moment to moment. We talked about getting yourself a coach. I want to ask the panel, what are your thoughts on how maybe a community could help get somebody forward towards that? Get somebody thinking about the journey and helping themselves to discover these limiting beliefs. Any thoughts?
One of the things I hear from women a lot is they think that what they're going through, they're the only ones going through it. So I have found that communities for women allows them, if they're open and honest, allows them to recognize that I'm not alone and I don't have to do it all by myself. So that alone shifts a limiting belief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's the like-mindedness with a little bit of different flair for everyone. And you can take from others and say, and it's just like you said, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this. What can I learn? And what can we learn together? Because it might be the same, but it's a little bit different. And just being able to have that community for the support and knowing that you're not alone, and getting ideas off of each other. And how did you do this? How did you overcome this? Anybody else, encounter this? It's a support. And recently, this spring, I started here in our community, a walk it out, work it out, where
Oh,
I don't make it anything more than it is. I say, hey, I'm here this day. If you have something that you want to be coached on or whatever, come and join me. We're going to, and it puts in that physical activity as well. So it doesn't take any more time. So it's funny, Rachel, because I'm like, I don't have any more time and I've got to be able to exercise. So how can I incorporate this instead of doing more group coaching? I do it within our community and say, okay, pop up, here I am, let's go. And if you're interested, you can join me. And so we've had great success with that, where people show up, we walk, and then they bring their challenges or what they've learned, and we talk it out and have coaching sessions right there, and it builds that community at the same time.
oh, that's amazing. Can I borrow that?
I want to feel it
Absolutely.
too. I love it.
I know, because I literally had no more time to exercise. I was like, I gotta exercise. How can I do this and still serve people? So that has been a lot of fun.
That's cool. I'm going to think about that, how I can implement that here in my local area.
Yeah.
Well, we are 40 minutes into our time together, and any final thoughts that you want to share about limiting beliefs? before we open it up for questions? I think, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, one thing, and I think we've all kind of touched on this at some point, but I think Kimberly dove into a little bit, is just really remembering that your thoughts lead to action or inaction. You know, whether that inaction's procrastination, avoidance, whatever it is, but at the end of the day, your thoughts are going to take you down whichever path. So, you know, if your thoughts are that you can't do something, you're right. That's where you're going to end up. Whereas if you do believe, you know, even if it's just a little step like we've talked about, your actions will, you know, follow that and you will get to wherever you're going.
That's such a great point, because I hear some people who kind of go, oh, law of attraction, what is that? And it can sound very woo-woo, but it really is when your intention is towards something. Not so much that it's going to magically manifest itself, but if your attention is there, you will have a tendency to do the things that'll get you there.
Yeah.
And so the manifestation is really you manifesting it. It's not magic.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Like, I get that there becomes this whole woo-woo thing around it, but when you look at what manifestation really is, it is you creating the outcomes because you're following the actions to get there.
Yeah. And you just reminded me about thoughts leading to actions. There's an acronym TFAR, TFAR. Thoughts lead to feelings, which leads to action, which leads to results.
Yeah.
And that's a model that it comes and goes for me. I forget, so I'll write it down to kind of keep myself grounded on that. Any other final thoughts?
It's just what it is. It's limiting. Find out how it's serving you. You know, if you see that face, do whatever you got to do. You know, embrace it or punch it. I don't. You know, I'm not sure, but it really is about the mindset. And if you want something bad enough, you're going to find a way to get to it. And that's really what it boils down to: is prioritize, and how bad do you want it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, I'm going to open it up to questions for the panel. Were there any in the chat? Maybe none? Okay, so thank you all. Thank you all for joining us in this conversation. I've learned. So, oh, Kimberly.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Is there anybody here that has a limiting belief that they want to change? Let's hear it, girls. Don't be shy. We've all got to shift ours, that's for sure. What is it, Angie? I see you shaking your head, girlfriend. What is it? Hi.
I think I've spent so many years almost being powered by my limited beliefs, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. I want somebody to raise their hand who hasn't been. Come on, really?
Yeah.
Okay. But this is the community that says you're not alone and you're not crazy.
Yes.
Okay, so what is it? One belief that you want to shift?
That I'm not good enough.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Would
I'm not.
Every woman has that? There's 3 beliefs that all women have, and I'm not enough or I'm not good enough is one of them.
Yeah, like not intelligent enough to be successful, like that. I think that would probably be it.
Okay. And so what do you want instead? What belief do you want instead?
Well, to believe that I am, that to believe that, I don't know, I that common sense and intelligence, or not that can trump intelligence, but no one has to have, no one has to be the smartest to be, or to, to be successful, or to find, like, to hope that common sense would be able to be enough, or how to speak to people. Um, I'm not even sure. I think that's all also like a weakness of mine, is not knowing how to convey my emotions, or, the right words to say. Um, I guess articulating well. So I think that's probably where I think would set me back.
So
Uh,
what do you want instead? Like if you didn't have what you just said and you had something else instead.
I don't know. Um, to be,
So what are you close with your mother?
no,
Do you have a best friend?
I do.
What would your best friend want for you? Has your best friend said something about you that you're like, oh, no, I'm not that? What does your best friend say about you?
My best friend will say that I'm a completely different person than what I was when she really knew me. The confidence is a 180.
So your
And
best friend can see you become confident.
yeah, she thinks it's inside me, and I just chose to almost like not believe that she met a completely different person,
Okay.
and I
So
can see that. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to try something and give me some feedback. Give the group some feedback. Would you do that?
Okay.
Okay. I want you to think the thought or think the thought, I am confident. Okay. And notice where your thinking goes. Does your thinking go looking for evidence?
Yes.
Okay. So it
It
looks for
does.
evidence. Okay. And did you find evidence that you are confident?
Yeah, I see myself confident in certain areas. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now shift it and put the I am at the end of it and say confident I am.
Confident I am.
And
Okay.
notice, are you still looking for evidence?
No.
Ah, interesting.
Hmm.
And do you feel that you've owned it? Like I'm meeting somebody who has confidence?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's just certain areas. I feel like I insert myself in areas where I know I can be confident.
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting. If you Yoda-ize the adjective and put the I am at the end of it, you will become it.
okay.
Real easy.
I would like to try that. Okay.
So the next time that you have to speak in front of somebody and you feel you're going to be tongue-tied, just tell yourself confident I am, good speaker I am, and you'll become it in that instant. And
Oh,
then you'll start getting evidence that you are that.
okay.
Got
I'm
it?
gonna try that. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank
Andy.
you.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you, ladies.
It was great.
Thank you. Thank you. Jess,
Yes,
how you doing?
I'm doing well. This was a very good discussion, and I'm very grateful for the um, information on more confidence building because, as you know, I have a big problem with that.
We all
And
do.
speaking on, different topics can be easy for me, but learning, like one of my limits that I have with myself is math, and you know that. um so this next semester I'm going to be taking math, and it's got my heart palpitating a little bit. But confident I am that I will pass. And I have to take that mindset into this
Can I
because
share a story with you, Jessica?
yes, please
So
do, Miss Kimberly.
So I had a client, and she was going into first year of high school. And she comes to me and she says, I says, how are you doing in school? She says, I'm doing great except math. I'm terrible at math. I don't get it. I go, okay. So I talked earlier about Psych-K. So I had her go into a position of Psych-K. Now you're driving, you can't do it. You cross your
Yes.
you cross your ankles, and then you cross your wrists the same way your ankles are. So if your right ankle is over your left ankle or vice versa, that's what you do with your wrists. And then you've got
Okay.
butterflies, and you bring the butterfly wings in and you tuck it up like that. So you kind of look like a pretzel. So I had her do this, and I had her think the thought, I am good at math. That's all I did. I'm good at math. I'm good at math. She was in it for 3 to 5 minutes. 2 weeks later, I see her. I says, how you doing in math? She says, why did you ask me? I says, well, last time I saw you, you weren't doing good at math. She says, oh, I get it.
Interesting.
That is
So
very interesting.
Psych-K will change a belief in 3 to 5 minutes on a cellular level, to the point of
Wow.
you will not remember the old belief.
Wow.
Okay. So go do
Okay.
that. Go do that.
Yes, Miss Kimberly.
Okay. And you can say at the end, confident I am, or great at math I am, and put the directional mantra in it, and you will be fine.
I really appreciate that. That's a great direction and guidance. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your expertise, all of you on this panel.
It was a great panel. It
Yeah,
was. I like the diversity.
such a great conversation. And just, Inspire, Empower, Achieve, that platform is not just for us throwing content at you. Feel free to post something, to share a
Okay.
win, share a struggle, and we're here to support you. That's what we're here for. Somebody will chime in and say, we got you. We hear you. And if you say, oh gosh, I'm so nervous about this next math test. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we can bring you down to some level of reality, ground you, and so you can focus on the thing that you need to do.
I want to address that phrase about
Oh, thank you.
I'm nervous about something. So Harvard did a research on measuring with wavelengths every emotion you had. There was only 2 emotions that shared the same wavelength, and that was excited and scared. So if you think about that, if you're feeling, quote, scared, and you tell yourself you're excited, it changes your mind.
Yep.
But it's actually the same vibration. So if
Yep.
you've ever ridden a roller coaster and you're standing in line, I promise you, you're over there going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm so scared. And then you get on it and you're like, oh, I'm so excited. It's the same feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Said a different way, if you think about the physical manifestations of anxiety, you get butterflies in your stomach, you get kind of shaky, clammy palms. When you think about your physical manifestations of excitedness, butterflies in your stomach, a little shaky, sweaty palms.
Yep.
I'm so excited about this panel, and I'm taking notes, and I pride myself on having decent penmanship. My notes are all because I was so shaky with all this excitement of talking to you people. Wow. Thank you all so much. This was recorded, and so this will be available for replay if anybody wants to come back and revisit some of these conversations, some of the things that we talked about. I know I learned a lot, and I know when I rewatch some videos that has such rich conversations in it, I um, I tend to pick up more the second time I watch it, the third time I watch it. And so what we want to do for you all and for future viewers is to have this available for you to rewatch on replay. And in closing, I want to also say that Lori, I've had conversations with Lori about career and leadership and just her profound insights have been so valuable, even in my own career trajectory as I'm considering different changes in my role. Um, so if anybody wants to work with Lori on a one-on-one basis, you can reach her. I guess at the very least, I can say you can reach her through through her website. If you want, do you want to talk a little bit about your 365 coaching organization?
Yeah, so 365 horsepower coaching and consulting was founded on when I recognized a younger, the younger demographic. It started about 2018, and I was encountering young professionals where they were smart. That wasn't it. They were talented, but they just didn't have any purpose. They didn't know what they wanted. They had no goals. They were frustrated. They just felt unfulfilled. And I kept encountering this over and over and over again. And I was like, I gotta do something here. And I think it was during COVID, I started to see the mental health decline with it on top of that. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And I didn't want to put anyone in my box, right? I didn't want to give advice based on what I know. So I started online coaching. I have a little bit of experience in that, and thought I got to get a skill set here that's sustainable for someone else. That we all have our own journeys, we all have our own stories, and I wanted something sustainable. And even with my own teams within the corporate environment, I was encountering this. It was this demographic. And I wanted to help them get unstuck and move forward and set out on their own journey with happiness and joy and fulfillment and understand what the end result was that they wanted, but get them out and moving. And so that's really why 365 was formed. It was about bringing a conscious mindset every day, waking up every morning, 365 days a year, and changing the mindset so that people can live this life to its fullest, however they want to, their success, what defines success for them. And so that's really why it was created. And it's an honor and it's a privilege to serve that generation, Z's, millennials. And I look forward for them to come in and fill these baby boomers roles that are trying to retire, which I'm working with the baby boomers as well because we have this gap. And so I'm trying to bridge the gap between generations so that they can fill these roles and our retirees can actually retire.
Mm.
Thank you. And, Rachel, with respect to health and wellness, I've learned so much from you as well. With my own journey as I'm practicing karate and my practice kind of comes and goes, if you could talk about your coaching and what you offer your clients in closing so we can let everybody know you're the go-to.
Sure. So my coaching is called version 2.0 coaching, and that really came about as a personal journey. Charlotte mentioned at the beginning that I went through my own health journey. So I had lost 120 pounds. And through that process, similar to the client I was describing earlier, I was very much a hard worker, gave my all to my job, that kind of thing at the sacrifice of my health. And I saw where that was leading me. The story I described earlier was a different person, but it just so happened I have a similar story. So, as I was going through my weight loss journey, people kept saying, "Oh my God, you're such a different person. You're like Rachel 2.0." And so that 2.0 kind of stuck with me. And that's where the version 2.0 coaching came from. And it's really just about, I've been mostly working with women, but it's just really about helping women sort of get their identity back, whether it's through weight loss. Sometimes, it's moms who have given their all to their children or aging parents, just women who have kind of lost themselves and put themselves on the back burner. And, you know, as a lot of our generation sort of moving into that perimenopause kind of phase and menopause and all the changes that brings, you know, I've also been focusing there. So I have a few different certifications and backgrounds as far as health and wellness goes, but it's really just about helping women kind of find themselves again and what, you know, help them get confident and healthy and whatever that looks like to them.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. And Kimberly, oh my gosh, every time I attend one of Kimberly's little webinars, I have some sort of profound aha moment. And I've asked Kimberly this multiple times. Where were you 20 years ago when I first got married? Kimberly, would you like to talk about your coaching and what you have to offer?
Well, my private practice is working with couples, but I started something called the Gutsy Wives Club. So it will be a membership program for women to be involved in. I call it She Who Decides. She Who Decides. So many women are unhappy and uncertain in their marriages, and they want to know what to do, and they don't know what to do. And usually the advice that they get from family members, especially parents who are already divorced, is, you know, give up, leave the jerk. And that may not be the right decision. A couple of statistics that got me started on this was 70% of divorces are filed by women, and 70% of women who leave their husbands because of infidelity regret it. That really hit home for me, because most women will say, if the guy cheated, that's it, I'm leaving. And then years later regretting it, because usually he gets his act together and, you know, has a great family, second family, and they're regretting it. But marriage is on the increase, regardless of people thinking that 50% of marriages end up in a divorce. We're still getting married. We still want to be with somebody, but most people don't know how to be married. So that's what I teach, how to be married or how to be divorced, because sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah.
Yep. But to make the right decision, and women are struggling. Women are struggling with their own identity, much less trying to make a good decision. Because how can you make a good decision with a lot of limiting beliefs? You're not going to.
No.
And I know that Lori would know this, you know, if they have limiting beliefs, they're not going to make good decisions about the job that they take or the job that they don't take. Or with Rachel, you know, about the limiting beliefs about whether or not that client is going to take her advice and use it. And we call that sabotage.
Yeah.
And so I clear things up for people, is what I do, about their relationships, whether it's marriage or any other relationship, and with their relationship with themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Again, thank you all. And for those of you watching this panel, you can reach Lori, Kimberly, and Rachel through Inspire, Empower, Achieve. You can find them, direct message them. You can post something in Coach Connect, where that space is really meant for you to find the coach that's right for you. If you're looking for other specialties, that's the place to go, because we're all watching. We're all here to support you. We have other money mindset coach who's all, you know, not on this panel, but maybe in another one. And we have a change and transition coach. And what's the last? Existential confidence coach is another one that we have. So please leverage our community and leverage these wonderful, phenomenal, profound, full of wisdom coaches. Thank you, Lori, Kimberly, and Rachel. And I'll see you at the next one.
And I want to say thank you to the brave attendees for jumping in and
Yes.
getting laser coaching. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was really brave, you guys. I'm
Yes.
so proud of both of you guys. Yes, it's super cool.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Thank you all. Thank